All right, it's 7 o'clock in Gardner, Kansas. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Looks like a few of you braved the cold to come out and join us this evening. Thank you for that. We do have two presentations this evening. Our first presentation is the Gardner Land Bank, and Matt, that is you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The Land Bank is required to provide an annual report to the governing body, accounting for all receipts, disbursements, and property transactions. In 2023, the City of Gardner, the Board of Trustees of the Gardner Land Bank, the Bristol Group, and the Bristol Partners, an affiliate of the Bristol Group, entered into a land bank agreement in order to address tax delinquencies and to abate a portion of a special assessment of the property comprising the Stone Creek project. The proposed development project includes a combination of commercial, industrial, and residential. In conjunction with the land bank agreement, 3 parcels were conveyed to the land bank. We started the year in 2023 in the land bank with $5,096.90. The land bank earned $252.45 in interest on idle funds. There was $148 in expenditures for recording fees paid to Johnson County Records and Tax Administration. The land bank ended with a cash balance of $5,201.35. And the land bank's financial records will be audited as part of the city's 2023 audit. That concludes the annual report.
All right, thank you, Matt. Council, do you have any questions or comments? All right, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. We'll move on to the next presentation, US 56 and Mulberry Traffic Signal Study. Welcome.
Mayor. Evening, Mayor, Council. So before we get into the presentation, I want to give just a little bit of a history on the Mulberry and 56 intersection. So the signal that's out there today, at least as near as I can tell, was put in probably in the mid-'80s, back when US 56 was widened to 4 lanes. So it's been around a long time. It's roughly 40 years old, and we've been having a lot of maintenance issues with it in recent years. And so during the US 56 project, we decided, well, let's put together a change order and make some improvements to it, see what we can do with that. And so we were going to replace PEG signals, add radar detection, improve wiring, add a battery backup. And the estimate we got just to do that work was $150,000. So at that point, we decided, well, we don't really want to do that. I mean, a complete new signal runs around $250,000. So we're probably at a point where that's really what we're looking at doing when we need to improve it. So I thought it made a lot of sense that, okay, if we're going to look at putting this much money into it, let's actually look at the data and see if the signal is warranted under current traffic conditions. So we hired HDR to collect data and do an analysis on it. And Jason Haynes from HDR, via the wonder of the internet, will be presenting the results of their findings.
All right, thank you. There we are. Good evening. Jason, is that correct?
Hello, good evening. How are you all?
Good. Doing well, thank you.
Great. So Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to providing this presentation. Mr. McEldowney asked that we provide some guidance from an engineering perspective on the need for the traffic signal.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I have a location map here. You all know where the signal's at. It's about 2 blocks east of where you're at today, which is about 2 blocks east of the Elm Street traffic signal. You have Gardner Elementary to the north and Wheat Ridge Middle School to the even further to the north. Both of those kind of play into the engineering guidance, and we'll get into that here in a moment. So the way we do a traffic study is defined by the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Really, we liken that to the traffic engineer's Bible. It provides all the guidance for road managers to install and maintain traffic control devices around the country to make sure there's uniformity. It is published by FHWA. Again, it's a compilation of national standards, and Chapter 4C specifically has a methodology that's used for determining the need for a traffic signal. Traffic signal warrants are important. They basically are the basis for an engineering study where we look at traffic conditions, we look at pedestrian characteristics, physical characteristics, and make a determination on the need to either install or remove a traffic signal. There are consequences of using an unwarranted traffic signal. Rear end collisions, typically an unwarranted signal will surprise motorists and they have to brake harder and quicker, and you tend to have more rear end crashes. You can create excessive delay and congestion with an unwarranted signal. And last, you can create some disobedience to the traffic signal if people feel like they're stopping and nobody's there to make a turn, or they don't see traffic on an opposing direction that has a green. They may possibly run a red. So the findings in our traffic signal warrant study, and you should have the report, it's a more detailed report. We found that there were 6 traffic warrants that were applicable to this location. All 6 of those, warrants 5 through 7, as you can see on the screen, the criteria were not met. Warrants 1 through 3 are all related to traffic volumes, whether it's throughout the day or during the peak hour. Warrant 4 is based on pedestrian volumes at the intersection. Warrant 5 is relative to the location near schools to determine if there's a need to help students and assist students with safely crossing the road. And then warrant 7, as you see on the screen, is related to crash experience, and we did look at 5 years of crash data to determine if that warrant was met. All 6 of these applicable warrants were not met in the traffic study. But the process for either keeping a signal, installing a signal, or removing a signal is a little bit more than just the study. The warrants provide guidance to us traffic engineers, but at the end of the day, even if the study results show that a signal is not justified, there is a removal process in the MUTCD. The city engineers have done a great job of following that process. The third item on that process is informing the public and asking for public comment. I've personally seen every one of these items done in the step-by-step fashion. And so the public comment was interesting. A majority, about 80%, were in favor of retaining the traffic signal. Some of the reasons stated by the citizens was that it provides better access onto Main Street for the citizens, for the businesses, or the patrons using those businesses, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods. The signal does help to provide for crossing of students to and from the nearby schools. And they also stated that the signal encourages some traffic calming, slow traffic on Main Street specifically. So that's kind of a summary of the engineering study. And then, of course, like I said, the public input is supposed to inform that decision that you need to make. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Jason.
So, sure, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Excuse me. So we brought this forward to get a little feedback from council, because again, the data, I think, is pretty clear, shows the signal's not warranted. But again, the consideration is based on public input. Should we consider leaving the signal, or should we take it out? I would say staff's recommendation, again, just based on the data, would be, and the cost would be, no, let's remove the signal and just take it out for good. So.
I do have a comment.
Yes.
I reached out to Superintendent Brian Huff and offered to let the school district submit comments and present them to the council. Kellen, Tim, and I met with him and his staff, and they did not have a strong opinion either way, and they decided not to submit comments on this issue.
And I would say, if there is public comment, before we proceed to the council, if there is anyone in the public that would like to comment on this evening.
Mayor, we're not in a position to make that decision right now, are we? That's not on
We
me.
can.
We can.
Well, this is the only discussion item, we don't have an action.
Right, but if the action item is to leave it as is or don't do anything,
Yeah,
then we could just have consensus now.
okay, because I know that if there were an action on here, we might have had some folks come out from the
Maybe.
community to discuss this, so.
I do have a quick question. The volume study, do you know, was it a 90-day study? Is that what we ended up doing? And then like the dates, I guess, if we know what that was.
No, the data was collected just over one day, and Jason, jump in and help me out with any of this. I mean, we had it, so the road opened in back up to 4 lanes in September, and the signal was already off because we turned it off during the construction. Decided we would just leave it off. We notified the public and started collecting that information, which we collected through the end of the year. So almost it's over 3 months worth of information. But Jason, you might speak a little bit on as far as the data collection.
Yeah, so the new traffic volumes were taken in October after Main Street project had opened. So we waited a little while to make sure traffic patterns, went back to usual patterns, usual volumes before we collected the data. And so this study uses that newer data to analyze those warrants.
Council, any comments?
So, I mean, this is pretty cut and dry to me. The data tells us we don't need it. It's been off for 2 years. We haven't had any problems. It's something that, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist since it's been off, and we have to replace the whole thing. So, until there's a reason to spend the money to put something in, I don't know why we'd even consider it. So, pretty cut and dry to me to not do it.
Do we have updated numbers on the cost? If we decided to replace this?
It's $250,000 is just a kind of a rule of thumb for signals for a complete replacement.
And that includes if we were to include it within the signal synchronization as well?
That'd be separate.
Yeah, well, that's under separate contract. That's another thing we're working on, but that signal would be included if we kept it.
Okay.
And if we were to do that, what's the timing? If we were to get a new light?
We'd have to get it designed, and we'd have to find the funding. I don't think, I'm speaking for Matt, I'm like, yeah, we'll find the money for it. I mean, I think it could be replaced within a year.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to get at that, and not to put you on the spot. Even if we were to say, yeah, we need to put that light back on, we're not going to turn the light back on for another year.
Yeah, at this point, we would need some additional work just to get it functioning in its current state. That's without replacing any of the major components.
Yeah, I think there's some minor work that could be done just to get it functioning again.
Yeah, I'm with Mark on this, or Councilman Baldwin, that.
You're good.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in time, it's going to be, let's just say it's off for 3 years. It just doesn't seem warranted.
Has there been an uptick in any of the accidents in this particular intersection at Mulberry in the last year and a half? I know that we've had lower speeds there because we've had half the road shut down for construction. But have we seen any deleterious effect to having this off?
I know there were a few accidents during the construction period. I'm not aware of any since we've reopened it.
No, there haven't been any since it was reopened,
Okay,
which is a small sample size.
it is very small. It's only 3 months, but
Yeah.
Do you know how many individual emails that we got?
Jason,
rough
do you
estimate.
recall? I'm going to say it was 20 to 30.
Okay.
Is that in the ballpark, Jason?
I don't remember. I feel like there was more comments than that, but I don't remember how many specific emails.
I've spoken to a couple of the businesses in that corner, and they have expressed a very strong interest in keeping that light. Specifically Big O Tires and Celebrities Cheesesteaks. They're very interested in keeping that light, just because of the fact that their businesses are so close to the road. So there's not a lot of turn area. I know that they would not meet the setback provisions at all if they hadn't been grandfathered, but we understand that.
Do you remember what I said when we
Yep.
talked about Phillips?
Mhm.
I'll say the same thing. We have no idea what will happen with those businesses. And if the traffic's not, the study doesn't warrant it now, regardless of
Yep.
the businesses. If anything changes with those businesses, either then a new study could be brought because it changes things, or
Yep.
we are back where we are, where it doesn't need it because the study still says currently we don't need it. So
I'm just
I don't
making-
think
Yeah,
that's really a consideration.
I'm just making a statement for the record that
That's fair.
this was definitely something that has been opposed by a vast majority of folks in that neighborhood and on that corner.
I tend to lean with the marks on this one that.
Of course,
Two marks make a right.
That if we've got another year out from the signal and that much money into it, and absolutely none of the criteria was met on any of, even if there was 6 of them and 2 of them the criteria were met, that's something to at least talk about. But
Okay. Well, it seems like at least there's majority consideration. Is that-
Mr. Councilman McNair?
McNair did
I was just kind of curious as to whether, to bring it up to speed, do we have to replace all the arms and the posts and all the?
yes.
Okay, so that's
That's that $500,000, yeah, or $250,000, yeah.
okay. That the only other comment I had, several comments from citizens, wanted to know if there could be at least some kind of crossing, pedestrian crossing mechanism looked at in the future, similar to maybe what we have on Madison over towards the high school and the Greenway. In some way to control traffic on Main Street for pedestrian crossways. Is there any way we could look at something less expensive like that?
That is certainly an option. Now, those signals, those are called RRFB, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, I think it is. But though I don't think that would be appropriate in this case with a 4-lane road with the amount of traffic. Instead, you'd be looking at what's called a hawk signal. If you've been over near the courthouse, the new courthouse on Santa Fe and Olathe, I think they have 1 or 2 of them. So those actually, they turn red. So as opposed to just warning that there's a person, you're actually required to stop when those come on. Now those can't be put at an intersection. If we were to go that route, we would have to find a different location to put it. And obviously that's a little more cost than the RFB would be.
Just round numbers, what was something like that? Probably round.
Jason, do you have anything off the top of your head?
Or the cost of a hawk signal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say they're 125 to 150,000 at this point, with inflation, recent inflation.
Sounds about right.
That, yeah, just my comment would be, that sounds like it'd be a lot closer economically and could possibly satisfy, what I've heard as far as feedback, major feedback.
Yeah, I would say my major concern with all this has always been pedestrian movements there. We didn't see a lot with the data. There is the option to go down to Elm Street and cross there. Obviously, for some people, that will be a little bit out of the way, but that would does provide a safe crossing.
Well, at least then we'd be providing something that would be safe for pedestrian traffic. And that's, like I said, that's the biggest feedback, the biggest type of feedback I had on this.
So at this point, though, regarding the traffic signal, there does seem to be consensus that we're not in favor of replacing it, putting it back up.
Maybe not full signalization, definitely some sort of mechanism, possibly similar to the one we have on South Center or 183rd Street, or something like that, where we can at least have some.
Not now.
No, not now. It wouldn't be now. But, I'm talking about the same kind of mechanism where if someone needed to cross the street, they could hit a button and then they'd have to obviously wait for the traffic to stop, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. So, yeah.
But to clarify, do we have consensus on moving forward with that, or is that just an option in our pocket for sometime in the future?
No, personally, I think that's in the future if something changes. Right now, nothing's warranted, and that's just yes, there's a small section of people living right there where you have pedestrians that may cross, but the data doesn't support that it's necessary. It's more of a feeling that, hey, we should do this because there are some people there. But until the data supports it, I don't think we'd even entertain that, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
Consensus on that at this point? Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. No public hearings, public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. There's a time clock on your left. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. The podium is now open. Coming forward, we'll move to consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda council would like to remove? Seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNear. We approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Consent agenda passes. Planning and zoning, nothing on that. We'll move to committee recommendations. Number 1, consider adopting ordinance approving a rezoning from C2 General Business District to CP2 Planned General Business District for potential commercial development of 0.81 acres located approximately 400 feet west of the intersection of Main Street and Moonlight Road.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Just a brief recap of where we are with this case. Tonight before you is a proposed rezoning of approximately 0.8 acres from C2 to CP2. This property is a triangular piece of property located between the Walgreens and the Patriots Bank building along Main Street. So when we're talking about this property, think about that configuration. It is a big part of this process. The proposed commercial building is for 2,100 square feet with a drive-through service window. There were 5 deviations requested by the applicant, primarily having to do with the drive-through location, the transparency on the areas that are exposed to Main Street. Our code does not generally allow for those drive-throughs along the major arterials, and we would require a greater level of transparency on that side of the building as well. Due to the configuration of this lot, staff did not have a problem with these deviations. We've also approved this kind of configuration in several other locations with the Culver's proposal and so on and so forth. What we do ask in return is enhanced screening so that we don't have headlights that are facing into oncoming traffic and things like that. So there's a difference or change usually made in the landscape plan as part of that. The other elements of the deviations had to do with the sidewalk widths along the building. Again, this is primarily a drive-through service. There is not a sit-down portion to this in the sense of a traditional restaurant. So it's a smaller format building again, with limited parking, limited space for that seating activity or that walk-up service. So it's primarily drive-through oriented. And that is also related to foundation landscaping as well. Because of the drive-through, we don't place a lot of plants along those elevations. They get placed into the screening element along the drive-through aisle. So as you're thinking about it, the other deviation that was requested had to do with the sign height and size. Staff was not in favor of the height and size in the location that was proposed. We recommended pushing that sign back 5 feet further, which they had room to do that, and granting the deviation on the size side of this. So the 8 feet that they proposed by pushing 5 feet back is an acceptable height for the sign. So they did that as part of their plan review or the plan revisions. Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 13th. The staff, an applicant, and one citizen who supported the project spoke. After discussion and consideration, the Planning Commission made the recommendation that is in your committee recommendation action form here, and they wanted to approve the rezoning and preliminary development plan with the 3 conditions that are shown there. We're seeking approval of the ordinance 2791 for the rezoning of the property. The applicant's team is present tonight if you have questions of them. So with that, I'll stand down.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Is there any public comment? Committee recommendation number 1. Okay. Council, you have questions or comments? Is it going to be party time? I didn't just make that up. It's in the council packet.
Oh, no. Take credit for it.
Yes, it is.
Then do I hear a motion for committee recommendation number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shoot, second Deaton. We accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2791, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Weed.
Yes.
Councilmember Shute.
Yes.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Mayor Winters.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2791 passes. Excellent. Committee recommendation and welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, look forward to is there any time? I don't know if I could quickly ask. Is there any timeline on? I'm just.
I can if you like me to.
Oh, so just really quick. I'm just curious if we had, just kind of a.
Well, first of all, let me introduce my family, because it's not just me behind this effort. It's my wife, Tracy, and my 3 kids, Mimi at KU, so don't hold that against her, and 2 boys in high school as well. So as I understand, we have to go to the Airport Authority and the Board of County Commissioners. So I think that's a February and March process. I think we're going to try to submit something to staff about the possibility of a conditional permit, maybe to get started earlier, but within the restrictions. So we can do that probably by 4th of July, hopefully. If not, then you're looking at September. So excited to be here. This is the first of that location in this part of Kansas. There's 2 stores in Wichita, 1 in Derby, a ton in Oklahoma, and a ton times 2 in Texas. So I would encourage you guys to the extent you're at Quick Trip now, and nothing wrong with Quick Trip, but look at the product that they have. It's good, and I think it'll be good for our family and Gardner to have the first site, and we're excited. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Hopefully the ground thaws by the time you want to bring it up.
That'd be good.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Committee recommendation number 2: consider adopting ordinance approving a rezoning from rural agriculture district to RP2 Planned 2-Family District. And consider approval of the associated preliminary development plan for Lone Star Prairie, a 47.71 acre, 191 lot single-family subdivision located on the south side of 175th Street, approximately 700 feet west of Osage Street.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm back. Just very quickly, as noted before, this is approximately 48 acres just west of the airport. It's one property or parcel separated from the airport on the west side of town along 175th Street. I just want to note quickly here, the A to RP2. Again, this is a single family subdivision, and I know as Councilman Baldwin shakes his head, we do this every time when we have these kind of planned developments. I just want to note, it is an RP2 district, which is a two-family district, but it is a plan district, so the plan will become the regulatory document, and in this case, it's proposed for single-family lots, 191 lots. The reason it's RP2 is that the lots that are proposed are under 70 feet wide, so just so you're aware of that, it cannot be utilized for duplexes and apartments and other things that you might commonly find with an RP district, or R2 district, sorry. That P is very important in understanding the tie to the preliminary development plan here. So with that, 191 lots, as mentioned before, there were 5 deviations that were requested here. Staff and the Planning Commission had some concerns about a couple of those deviations. One was the block length that was being proposed, especially on the east side. It was about 1,300 feet. We have a limitation of about 1,000 feet as a block length. So the Planning Commission was not comfortable necessarily with that block length, and also the idea that the configuration of that eastern road might allow for fast moving north and south through traffic once development occurred further south from here. So there is a request in the conditions by the Planning Commission that be looked at and that road configuration be somewhat revised, and the applicant was okay with that condition. Additionally, we had a couple of deviations that are very common at this stage that has to do with the front yard hardscape percentage and the sidewalk connection leading from the front door directly to the sidewalks in the development itself. Staff was comfortable with those deviations, but we were not comfortable with the garage limit deviation at this point. We have not seen elevations for the structures, and the request to us was a larger request than we would normally see or that we would normally approve through the process. So that deviation was also not part of the recommendation tonight. Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 13th. There were 5 people who spoke in addition to the staff and the applicant presentations. Concerns that were raised were the potential for conflict between residential development and the farming operations that are out in this area. So a concern by the property owners adjacent to this proposed development regarding the interface of active farming activities and residential nearby. Also, with the loss of the rural character, that was brought up, and there was some drainage questions that also came up as part of those presentations. So after discussion and consideration of the comments, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed rezoning with 3 conditions, and I mentioned the limitation. Only deviations 2 through 4 were part of that, and then also a revision of that eastern road to deter through traffic. That'll be handled through the staff and making sure that we get those requirements handled. We're seeking approval of ordinance 2792 for rezoning of the property. And with that, I'll stand down for questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment? Committee recommendation number 2? Council, you have questions?
Is there any discussion at this point as to where that detention pond is if the development to the west of it occurs and that pond, the lift station that's going to be put in there temporarily, possibly temporarily, gets removed? What would happen with that piece of the property?
So they'll always have to meet any of the detention requirements, and the stormwater drainage requirements are part of that. So if there's reconfiguration that has to occur because of a removal of the lift station going to gravity flow further south at a future date, that would have to be addressed as part of any plans to do that. So they always have that requirement as far as the drainage is there, and that's due to the development side of this. And I don't know if Kellen wants to add to that or not, but we're going to look at each one of those kinds of improvements as they come online.
Okay.
I only had one question, and that had to do with the proximity of the retention area to the east-west runway at Gardner Municipal Airport, the paved runway. and whether or not there might be any concern about potential.
I don't think we're that concerned with it. It didn't come up as part of staff comments, and I'll let Kellen talk
Yeah,
to
that's why I'm
that.
mentioning it.
Yeah, it's far enough away that we're not overly concerned with that.
With any bird issues?
No.
Okay. All right.
Also, just very quickly, I just checked with the applicant there, the proposal is for dry detention, so it will not be wet
Okay.
all the time.
Okay, good. Thank
Or
you.
it should not be, let's put it
All
that
right.
way.
I wasn't sure what the pond context was, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to make that clarified.
Yeah, there is actually a pond on adjacent property to the further west on that
Yes.
drainage. This would have nothing to do with that pond. That
Okay.
pond would stay intact as long as that property owner keeps it viable.
Of course.
But the detention facility that's associated with this is a dry detention as was
Great.
proposed.
Great, thank you.
Were the concerns over front elevations, is that due to one or two car garages, or what was the thought process on that?
So generally what is happening with our requirements in our design code, front-loaded garages are generally, the way our code is set up, is really only allowing a single car garage. We have allowed with 50-foot wide lots, the 2-car garage front-loaded, but it's generally at about a 40%, 45% of the front facade when you look at that front face. We need to see specific elevations that are being proposed by the developer, and that comes in with the final development plan process when they come into that. But generally, we're in that 40 to 45%. We found that can work on a 50-foot wide lot. If we get lower than 50 feet, which we do have some zoning districts that allow for smaller lots down to as low as 40 feet, it even gets more difficult to have that front-loaded garage. So there's some things there that we're watching for on those. But that'll come up as part of that review for the final development plan. We will get specific elevations for the models of the homes that they're planning on building, and then we'll look at if there are deviations needed and if those make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? All right, we have a motion for committee recommendation number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNear, second Shoot. That we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2792, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. So, Clerk.
Councilmember Ween,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember McNear,
Yes.
Mayor Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
All right, ordinance number 2792 passes. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
All right, no old business, move to new business. New business item number 1, consider a resolution authorizing the sale and conveyance of the project and execution of a release of leases and further authorizing certain additional related actions in connection with the city's not to exceed $9,300,000 industrial revenue bonds taxable under federal law, series 2023, Tallgrass Apartments, phase 2. Mr. Wolf.
On June 20th, 2023, the City Council passed ordinance number 2772, authorizing the issuance of industrial revenue bonds in the principal amount not to exceed $9.3 million for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, and equipping Phase 2 of a multifamily development. The proposed resolution acknowledges the approves the company's request to exercise the option to purchase the project pursuant to the lease, waives notice requirements, and sets a closing date on or around January 18th, 2024, and authorizes the execution of related documents. The proposed resolution also authorizes the execution and delivery of a first supplemental trust indenture. The supplemental trust indenture amends the definition of the completion date under the original indenture. Essentially, the completion date was defined earlier, where they had to complete the project and submit their final request for reimbursements of the project costs to the bond trustee by the end of the year last year. The supplemental indenture modifies that definition to allow for them to submit their final request for reimbursements at a later date. Bond counsel Ellsworth is here at tonight's meeting. He can help answer any questions you might have. It is staff's recommendation that you adopt the proposed resolution.
public comment for new business item number 1? I believe so. Council, questions, comments?
Housekeeping,
Housekeeping, yes.
yes,
Favorite word.
yes.
All right. I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Motion Deaton, second Shoot. We adopt resolution number 2134, a resolution authorizing the sale and conveyance of the project and execution of a release of leases, and further authorizing certain addition-related actions in connection with the city's not-to-exceed $9,300,000 industrial revenue bonds taxable under federal law, Series 2023, Tallgrass Apartments, Phase 2. City Clerk.
Councilmember Dean.
yes.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Weem.
Yes.
Resolution 2134 passes. And last new business item, number 2, consider a recommendation to award a service contract to Urban Built Constructors for the Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant clarifier repairs. Cons.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. During the first Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant expansion, 2 pulsating clarifiers were installed. The purpose of the clarifier is to remove solid particles or suspended solids for the water as part of the treatment process. In 2022, during a annual inspection of the clarifiers, staff noticed a deterioration on the upper support of the clarifiers. We contacted several O&M services, and none of them could provide a solution or a fix for this problem. We finally went to the original equipment manufacturer, which is Evoqua, and they wanted to revamp the entire clarifiers for about a little more than $600,000. So staff went and looked at the as-built drawings that they found the name of Urban Built. Urban Built is the original installer for the pulsating clarifiers. So they came to site, they inspected the clarifiers and provided us a proposal for replacing the lower and the upper supports. The reason for the deterioration is that during the installation they use aluminum or iron bolts on stainless, and that creates a galvanic corrosion. So that's the reason why the supports are deteriorating over the past 15, almost 20 years. So we were unable to get a competitive bidding from other vendors. So we're also requesting that the competitive bid waiver be applied to this service. So we're recommending Urban Build Constructors for the repairs on the 2 clarifiers at Hillsdale for $319,976.
Thank you, Gons. Is there any public comment on new business item number 2? Council, questions? Seems like a much more feasible.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, really more comments. Urban Built did the original installation.
Correct.
They put in substandard, basically, or not correctly protected fastening equipment, correct?
The design, the actual equipment was put by Evoqua. They only installed what Evoqua told them to install.
Okay, so
So the design was an Evoqua design, not Urban Built.
was they did not actually utilize
Correct.
the equipment. So are they going to replace the equipment then with proper equipment that won't corrode nearly?
Correct. We're going to be using a stainless steel.
All right, just full stainless. Okay. It is a lot less. I'm concerned that we're having to go to a single source for this, and if this were to happen again in the future, we don't have any kind of backup. If there's a, basically we would be completely replacing the clarifier. I'm a little concerned about possibly, is there anything in the next 10 or 15 years where we might have to start looking at replacing that system anyway because of the fact that it's a single source.
If I may add something, the
Yes,
plan
please.
was the upgrade was in 2005, 2006.
Mhm.
We had plans to retire that what we call nowadays the South Treatment Plant eventually.
Yeah.
Because we have the new equipment for future replacement, which is the North Treatment Plant.
Mhm.
So sometime, the South Treatment Plant has to be retired completely.
Of course.
So we're hoping that with these repairs and the replacement of the media filter can extend the life of the plant for an additional 5 to 10 years.
Okay. All right. So not this CIP, but the CIE, we would actually include that migration to the new plant at that point.
I didn't.
Correct.
So
we're talking about 15 years out, 10 to 15 years out.
10 to 15.
We would actually be looking to replace that whole system.
That whole system will be retired and in a new treatment plant will be added on the north end.
Correct. The modular addition that we
Correct,
were talking
correct.
about before.
We'd add
Yes.
to the north, the south would
Correct.
just shut down.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
That's what I meant to say.
But we thought that by spending $300,000, you can still produce $4 million on the old system. And I think that's a
Fair.
little investment compared to if you have to replace it with the new
Yeah.
upgrade, it'll be more like $10, $12 million.
Oh, I know.
So I understand the concern of one bid, but that's the nature of this game. There's nothing we can do about that.
Nope. It's
And-
specialized equipment.
And as far as whether or not we do this or something else, to me, this is essentially cheap insurance because it keeps the south side running
Mhm.
until we migrate completely. And it also then is taking a little bit of load off the north side.
Sure.
So we're extending the life of the north side.
Yeah. I'm not against this at
So
all.
I think 300 grand is, it's a lot of money, obviously, but you don't have an option that's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this makes sense to me.
Oh, no, it makes sense to me too. I just wanted to know what the next step was going to be, the next logical step was going to be once we started to see this fix deteriorate. And you've just answered that question, no, God, so.
Is there a motion for business item 2?
So moved.
Motion Deaton. Second Baldwin. We authorize the city administrator to award a service contract with Urban Built Constructors in the amount of $319,976 for the Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant clarifier repairs. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? New business item number 2 passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move to council updates. Chief, start with you.
We just opened registration for our Citizens Police Academy, which will start in March. So if you have anybody that might be interested, they can find the registration on our website.
Awesome, yeah. That's great, good to hear. I know that was popular when it was.
Yeah, it's a good program.
I've had a lot of people ask,
Yeah.
so I don't know, we have great enrollment.
How many are we accepting in the class? Is it still, I think it was around 20.
20 is about what we would take, but if we have more than that, we'll reevaluate and see what we can do. We might be able to split the class and do some different things. I advocate to let people know, but we'll just have to check out our resources if we get that much response.
Awesome, good to hear, thank you. City clerk?
I have nothing.
Finance, Matt? City attorney? Nothing, okay. Gons, utilities?
So we were able to, the system SPP was able to produce enough or secure enough generation over the past 4 days, so we didn't have any issue with energy. However, the peak price went up to $400 per megawatt hour. They're typically running nowadays about 23 to 28. That's because the price of gas went from $3-4 to $10, and yesterday they were selling it for $30.
I've seen this movie before, guys.
Yeah.
However,
that's-
it wasn't as bad as
No,
2021.
No, it wasn't 100. It wasn't 100 like it was then.
So I think the worst is over. Over the weekend, we experienced one power outage. 68 customers were out of power because of a failed transformer that were restored within 60 minutes. Then we had a water main break by on Elm Street. We had two. One on Sunday, the 14th, which was Saturday, and one on Monday. Due to the extreme low temperatures and the age of the pipe, which is about 60 years old, caused the break on two spots that was fixed within 1 hour and, from 8 to almost 8 hours on the first break, and the second break, I do not have the exact numbers right now. But it's repaired, and we're looking at future replacement of that section of water main.
All right, thank you, Gons. Jason, Parks and Rec?
Nothing tonight.
Dave, Community Development?
Just a quick item, we do have Planning Commission next Monday evening here in the council chamber. So we just have one item on the agenda. It's a small agenda, but still it's a tabled item from the previous Planning Commission item. So.
Thank you. Kellen, Public Works?
Nothing further tonight.
All right. City Administrator?
Yeah, so I told the council last meeting I was gonna be bringing a contract for the property over here on Center Street to this meeting. There's a delay in getting the contract language worked out, so likely be the next meeting. And then Councilmember Ween brought up in November, I believe, of last year, looking at the Gardner News again for the paper of record. We've had communications with them. They did give us a proposal. We were able to get some updated language on how that was going to work, but it didn't get to us till the end of last week, so I'll be bringing something to council at the next meeting. Ryan had mentioned, I think, a couple meetings ago about second and third class cities publishing on the city website, but in further discussions on that issue, we couldn't do it for every item, and just to get legal review to get legal to review every item would be more than what we would save
Exactly.
for doing it. And Gardner News is committed to doing it online in front of the firewall and then in print, and it's actually cheaper than what we're paying out to the record. So I'll be bringing that next meeting.
Good. Look forward to that. Thank you. Councilman Shute?
Nothing.
Councilman McNair?
Just two things. First to Gons and the Utility Department, excellent work in cold weather, and also to Kellen and Public Works, great job on the streets this last couple of weeks. Very impressive. Thanks, guys.
Here, here. Councilman Ween?
No, Councilman McNair took my thunder.
Sorry,
Thanks
dude.
for, no, somebody's got to be first.
Council Vice President?
Same, echo my thanks to the Public Works and anybody in any department that had to do with this cold weather and snow plowing and getting that all taken care of. It was very nice to be able to drive on our roads so quickly.
And also, let's give a shout out to first responders who had to be out there in that weather as well.
Yes.
So thanks to the police and the other servants that were out there doing their job in the middle of all this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Dangerous.
Council President?
Nothing, it's been covered.
Ditto.
All right. Well, I do have something I did want to bring up this evening, and I've been contemplating this for a while and speaking with staff, and we have multiple committees, public committees feel like they aren't really well utilized. And I feel like we're constantly trying to fill these committees, and it just seems like they're not really serving much of a purpose at this point. Most of them have not met in quite some time, and when we do meet, I feel like it's not so much advisory as more of a kind of an update, I guess. And so to simplify things and streamline things, I'd like to take a look at some of these committees and as possibly either dissolving the committee or changing maybe the language that they only meet. Maybe if there's a certain project that's coming up and we want some advice or citizen input, that kind of thing. I know there are some, planning commission is one that we, by statute, can't get rid of, right? So.
Don't want to.
Yeah.
They do the dirty work for us. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely. We wouldn't want to. And personally, I think there's some merit in the utility advisory committee. But some of the other ones, I think we could certainly look to either change or dissolve. So I just wanted some feedback. I have spoken with council leadership a little bit about it. I've spoken with some staff about it as well. So I'm going to throw that out there. And so there's Citizens Police Academy or Advisory Committee. Sorry, that's a movie. There's
Public Works,
Public
necessity.
Works, accessibility,
Yep.
and then the Parks and Rec.
And E EDAC.
And EDAC, yeah.
Yep.
Not getting to say PWAC is going to be a little bit disappointing.
Personally, it seems like we come around and we're asking for people to fill the spot. And I think one of the issues with it is you're making a commitment to serve for a certain night, certain time, so many times a year. And if we switched it to, I guess, what you're proposing, which is as necessary, essentially. So if we have a project that we can get input on, I think it might be easier to get some people to say, hey, I'll help out with that. And then it's also transitory. You don't have to commit for 4 years to doing something. But I really care about that project, so I want to jump on it and be here. So I don't think there's any harm in transitioning those to something like that. Essentially dissolving them, and then if there's a need for something, we put it out there and say, hey, public, come provide your input. Sounds good.
So basically, changing. I'm just getting clarification. Just changing it from a committee, a standing committee, to a working group, for example.
Yeah.
And that working group would convene
As necessary.
as necessary for certain projects, like if we have like sidewalk replacement or something like that, and Public Works and Accessibility wants to weigh in, they can do that.
Exactly.
Like what we did with the accessible playground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Project-based instead of
Mhm.
you have to meet once a quarter. Let's meet when there's
Yeah.
a project and people that are interested in that project.
So again, replacing a committee with a working group.
Yep.
Or a study group.
I think that sounds like a pretty good proposal. Just thinking back, I got started in city service with EDAC, then went to Planning Commission, and ran for council. It's a great place. These committees are a great place for our citizens to get a taste and get started in public service. I'm all for it. As needed.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain committees, like for example, Citizens Police Advisory. I think that there might be some merit to keeping that as a standing committee because of the community interaction piece.
Well, I think that's the thing. Now we have a community policing officer that we didn't have before.
That's correct.
So
We
now
did.
you're kind of like, well, do we have a need for that now that
So
somebody's doing that job?
Yeah.
one of the things we did before the CPAC was a thing was anybody that went to the Citizens Police Academy, their name was on a list.
Yeah.
And anytime the police department needed volunteers,
Mhm.
needed input, they would just do a mass email to everybody that's been in
That's
the
great.
Citizens Police Academy.
Yeah.
And then went to that group and like, hey, we need somebody to help hold a sign at 4th of July or whatever it was. And so then that's a huge group of people that have been there that the police can kind of go to
Yep.
for input on projects. If they have projects that want some input, they can just use that.
And I need to make the point of all the standing committees outside of utilities and planning commission, CPAC's been the most active. It's probably not even close. So I know that you worked really hard on trying to get that together as well as part of the group that started that. So, yeah, I mean, that's great. If we had a distribution list for each one of these working groups that would be farmed off of individuals who had already expressed an interest in the past, maybe that's where we start, where we seed it.
Yeah, I agree. So from a logistical standpoint, then would we dissolve these committees and then?
So ordinance updates.
Pretty much. Lots of them.
Yeah,
Actually,
we
not.
could go
It's
with
just
one.
be the one master ordinance that would then, yeah.
And then we can send out an email just letting everybody know that those standing committees are no longer in existence, but that we will keep everybody's name and contact information and give them opportunities to be in a working group as the need arises. And then we keep to UAC and obviously Planning Commission.
Okay. Does that sound acceptable?
Yeah,
everyone?
I think the only other thing I'm thinking about is so going down that route, we'll make sure to get public feedback then as well. Because I think it's fine from our standpoint too, but I'd also like to, if somebody has, or hopefully more than us, somebody, but hopefully if people have a strong negative idea to us dissolving these, that they would come forward and say something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, they
I
can
would
come to that
assume-
meeting when we do the ordinance
Right,
or
right.
reach out to us. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yep. So when would this be coming to council then for consideration? Second meeting in February? It's going to take a little while to get the new language, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we adopted an ordinance, and I was just trying to pull that up, creating all these committees, creating the membership.
Mhm.
So I'll just need to go through and redline all that. So, I mean, what I heard is we want to keep utilities, what was the other one?
Planning.
Planning
Are we-
planning is
We have
statutory.
to keep planning.
Yeah.
Is airport?
What about airport?
Oh, that's a tough
I
one
would
to
suggest
crack.
keeping the
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I-
have to keep airport.
I
That's
feel like we
effective.
should as well.
And
I
it's,
just,
it's on a separate ordinance as well.
it wasn't
Yeah.
brought up, that's why I thought
I don't think you can.
No, you're right.
yeah, I would recommend keeping that as well.
I mean, we're talking about, so just for clarification, Public Works and Accessibility, the infamous PWAC, yes. The Citizens Police Advisory Committee, the EDAC, Economic Development Advisory Committee,
And the Parks and Rec.
and Parks and Rec. Those are the four. That would be on the restructuring block. I wouldn't call it chopping block, it'd be restructuring.
Sure.
All right.
And so, just to be clear, no fixed membership. It'll be on a project basis as appointed by the governing body.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like we do when we have a road project or something and we have an open house.
Okay.
Yep. Call for comments or whatever, or call for whatever, working group.
And that's all I had. So thank you for everyone. If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hold on.
Second.
Point of order.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion Deaton. Who's the second?
McNear,
Second McNair. Adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained?